feel like he's one of the only filmmakers currently that's taking kind of these new ideas. And I don't know of many people doing that, besides making sequels and making all these superhero movies, as much as I love Marvel and stuff. But this is a new idea and a new concept, and he's putting it to film. And I just respect that so damn much.
Hello, and welcome back to Movie Husbands.
Today we're going to be reviewing Tenet, which is Christopher Nolan's latest directorial film. It stars John David Washington and is currently available to purchase on VOD. So Tenet, the main character is called the protagonist, and he's played by John David Washington here in this film. And basically his character learns about this concept of inversion, which certain objects kind of reverse themselves through time. So that's a very basic understanding of this film, as it gets pretty complicated from there. So Jeffrey, what did you think of Tenet?
So just to give like a little background about Christopher Nolan, right? So Christopher Nolan is this big budget filmmaker who I think a lot of people kind of say is the meeting of artistic merit and of blockbuster spectacle filmmaking, right? Because his films are both really critically acclaimed, but also very commercially successful. And he's somebody that tends to make really complicated, interesting movies within the studio system, which I think we all kind of appreciate about him. So Tenet came out in the summer, unfortunately amidst the pandemic, and was supposed to be the movie that saves movie theaters. You and I both love film and Christopher Nolan, and we didn't even see this in a movie theater. So it shows you how that went, but now it's available for us to watch, and I was stunned. I love this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Maybe my grade or my thoughts on film is based too much on ambition, but this movie is so ambitious.
Yeah.
And I really think it pulls it off. Maybe some of the things that people don't like about it, I can understand. And I'm sure that we'll get into those. But in general, I mean, for what it was trying to do, I think it was really successful. And it is a little convoluted, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is, like, what you were saying is that Christopher Nolan has this tendency to take on these really big ideas, which I think is just a testament to his abilities. I mean, from Inception to Interstellar, just like kind of packaging all these things and having it become more and more understandable as the film progresses, I think is something pretty astounding. I think he definitely pulls it off in this film.
Yeah, and speaking for, I guess a lot of people have the kind of criticism that the film is convoluted or difficult to understand. I think that the bare bones of the plot is actually pretty easy to understand. It's a lot of the details. I did kind of find myself at times saying, wait, why are we in this scene? What are they doing again? This film really moves, and it expects you to keep up with it. And that's something I've really always respected about Christopher Nolan. It's hard to think about this because it was 10 years ago, but think of the first time you watched Inception. You really have no idea what's going on. You're intrigued, but you're like, what is happening? This film, you feel that way through most of it, I would say. And you really have to keep up. But I so admire how he takes $200 million and he forces his audience to keep up with him. Like, we're in an age where, and I like Marvel movies just fine, but when Marvel movies are explaining every little thing to you and talking down to their audience, Tenet doesn't take 2 seconds to talk down to you. Going away from the plot for a second, this film is thrilling to watch. I can't tell you the last time I was this excited watching a film or this involved, because I think some of it is benefits too, because we really haven't seen blockbuster films all year long. With being home, watching things that are just kind of released on VOD, there's a lot more independent films. There's a lot of these quieter films we've been watching. We haven't been to the movie theater in almost a year, and we haven't seen any of these films. So to see a blockbuster film with these huge set pieces and all the suspense and the thrill of it and see it so well executed, it was just a breath of fresh air for this year.
Yeah, there's that specific scene with a plane, which I won't get too much into contextually, but I remember that happening, that moment, the second time the plane happens, and I was just on the edge of my seat, just kind of like, oh my God, this is where it's going, this is where it's going. Like, your mind suddenly starts to realize where this film is going.
Yeah, for me, I felt thrilled from the very opening scene. The very opening scene is this gigantic set piece with in this theater, and there's all these extras, and there's this kind of like invasion that's going on of the theater by all these armed gunmen, and you're just like, wow, this is blockbuster filmmaking. You know, this is why Christopher Nolan is better than other people that do this. And that being said, all the positives we're saying, there are a couple things that don't really work for me. The characters are definitely underdeveloped, or maybe they just simply don't have time for the characters. It's a very plot-driven film. There's a love interest that doesn't really work for me because some of the plot is based off the protagonist doing things because he likes this person, and I just never really bought that. But at the same time, from a minute-to-minute thrill scenario, I mean, I have no issues with that. To me, even when there's times where I'm not understanding what's happening, or perhaps something is kind of glossed over too fast, I'm still utterly engrossed.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think one of the unfortunate aspects of this movie is I felt like John David Washington's character as the protagonist wasn't really fleshed out enough. I feel like he deserved a little bit more backstory to make you kind of feel for him and kind of feel emotionally invested in his character. And I'm kind of surprised they didn't do that. I feel like in all of Christopher Nolan's previous films, he's been able to build this kind of emotional backstory to a character, whether it's in Inception with Leo DiCaprio's character and his wife. And the same with Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey's character and his relationship to his daughter. I feel like they're the main protagonists of those films, but they have this kind of fleshed out backstory that weaves its way into the plot of the film somehow. And I feel like I just didn't see that here.
Sure. Another issue I have too, and it's a really small issue, admittedly, and I'll admit that I'm kind of taking this from the film critic Mark Commode, who kind of said it better than I could, whereas he feels like he walks out of a Christopher Nolan movie with a lot of philosophical questions that make him think philosophically about something, whereas Tenet, most of the questions he came out with are more how, what, and when. Those kinds of things. They're more kind of technical questions than they are philosophical ones.
And I think one of the other aspects of this film that was just brilliantly done is the editing. And it reminded me so much of Interstellar because you kind of have all these scenes taken in different time periods that have to overlap and make sense to the viewer. And Interstellar does such a great job of that when Matthew McConaughey's character is floating through the black hole. And this film got that down so well. And you don't realize how well it's doing it until this kind of climactic moment where all these things kind of happen at once. And they just did such a phenomenal job with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have an understanding of filmmaking, as you do really well and as I do a little bit, you watch some of these scenes and you're like, how did they even do this? Like, you know how they did it, but logistically it sounds like such a nightmare that I can't believe that they pulled it off. I mean, there are like some of the best action scenes I've seen in years in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you love action in your movies, you're going to love this movie. If you love something that's kind of conceptually new and different, which Christopher Nolan gets so many props when it comes to that, because I feel like he's one of the only filmmakers currently that's taking kind of these new ideas and he's trying to do something new with film. And I don't know of many people doing that, you know, besides making sequels and making all these superhero movies, as much as I love Marvel and stuff. But this is a new idea and a new concept, and he's putting it to film. And I just respect that so damn much.
I know. Christopher Nolan is somebody that has made a whole career and a financially successful career off being original. You know, whereas most of the movies we get excited for, they're based off famous stories, they're based off comic books, they're based off something. You know, Christopher Nolan is really one of the only ones making new, and studios are willing to take a chance and give him a lot of money to make a new thing, which is a really hard thing to do nowadays too.
And he spends it on a gigantic airplane running through things.
Yeah, and I just love that he takes so much money and confounds audiences. Like, it's so respectable and cool to me. Anyway, but I think that people that find this film confounding, I would really encourage a second viewing or to just think about it a little bit more, because we watched it 24 hours ago and I've been thinking about it. And more, all these details really fall into place. I actually think it's a film that comes together really well the more you think about it.
Yeah, I really can't wait to watch it again and see all these moments that have a play later on in the film again for the second time and kind of put them into context about where it's going, knowing where it's going. It would be very interesting.
So you ready to go to the grades?
Yeah, I give this movie an A-. I had a blast watching this film. It was so enjoyable. The action sequences are amazing. Christopher Nolan, I think, hit it out of the park again. I'm really happy.
Yeah, I give it an A- as well. And I was just thrilled minute to minute. I really think this is exactly what blockbuster filmmaking should be. So that's our review of Tenet. So if you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.